you're gonna have more than enough. Don't worry about it. But we 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 face the same choices in life a lot of times. Should I take this job or stay in this job or go over here? Should I move over here and take this job? When I got out of the Marine Corps, I could have gone to California and gotten a job as a mechanic on the UAVs and gotten paid a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, no, don't.
He had bigger plans for you to be with me.
Yeah, exactly. But God provides. Even in rural Alabama, God provides.
Yeah.
Even if God took me to Mississippi, He would have provided. You know, Mississippi being one of the poorest states in the Union
Mm-hmm.
is where I'm going with that. Not to put Mississippi down.
Yeah. And just in case, we're talking about how evil and bad Egypt was, but just to be clear, we're not talking about people, Egyptian people personally. So we're not saying that you're a bad person, okay? It's just like any other country, they do bad things, including the U.S.
Yeah.
But it's not the people themselves.
Yeah.
Government really does a lot of that.
Yeah. And we're talking about ancient Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
which with a culture that is quite different in many regards to modern Egypt, and they were a different people to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I went to Egypt back in '91, and they were great, very polite.
Yeah. And most of the Egyptians you met were probably not original Egyptian. They were Arabic descendants of Arabic invaders.
I do remember going. We were by the pyramids, and they had camels that you could ride, and I had gotten on one. And the guy that owned the camel said his name is Moses. So I was on a camel by the name of Moses. So I don't know if that was real, or if he was just joshing with me. He may have been just joking, but it was funny at the moment.
We're all carried by Moses. But yeah. So that's that. But where were we even going with that?
Oh, it was nowhere really.
But in verse 3,
Mm-hmm.
God takes the promises He made to Abraham and reiterates them to Isaac, making them the promises to Isaac. Isaac is no longer operating on the fumes of the promises made to his father, but he's gotten a fresh fuel, a fresh fire
Mm-hmm.
that is his own.
It's like a renewed covenant,
Yeah,
in a sense, because
precisely.
he's told the same thing about his descendants will get these lands.
And then, before I forget, in verse 4, where it says, he will that all the nations will be blessed by his seed.
Mm-hmm.
The Hebrew is a little different there. It's actually a reflective form of the verb bless. So it actually says that the nations shall bless themselves by your offspring. Let me read it out of the Art Scroll Chumash, the Art Scroll, first 5 books of the Bible. In their translation, it says, I will increase your offspring like the stars of the heavens, and will give to your offspring all these lands, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your offspring. And we see that time and again. If you don't believe the Bible, I don't know what to say, because every promise that God has made has either come to pass or is on its way to becoming reality. And this one is the most glaring example throughout history, when the Persians blessed the children of Israel and allowed them to go back to their homeland, and not only allowed them but also commissioned them and paid for them to rebuild Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. Persia flourished. And in 1979, when up until 1979, think about it, the only nation to invade and conquer Iran was the Greek Empire. That's it. After the disillusionment of that, after the Turks, the Seljuk Turks come over and start chipping away at the Eastern Roman Empire, eventually Persia becomes independent again. And up until 1979, they were flourishing. They were one of the most modern Asian nations. They were wealthy, and they were up and coming. They were a tourist destination, and they were happy. But after 1979, the Islamic Revolution, they turned their backs on Israel, and ever since then, the rest is history, as they say. Now they don't even have water. They are in the worst drought, and they're begging Afghanistan, that doesn't have enough water for itself, to give them water. Something that is essential to life. They have a coast where they can build desalination plants, and they still don't have water. They have all the money from their oil and gas exports that are curtailed because of sanctions, but still, they have that money from illegal transactions. They have all the money that President Obama gave them, that President Biden gave them. But instead of using that money to make their lives better, they used it to build up terror networks around the world.
Weaponize.
There is not, to the best of my knowledge, there has not been a single terror attack around the world that hasn't been influenced or financed or aided by, in one way, shape, or form, by the IRGC, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And the results speak for themselves. When Britain made the Balfour Declaration, and after that they were blessed, they were still going on strong as a empire. But the moment they turned their backs on Israel and they reneged on that and caused the problems we see today, they lost their empire. One after another, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, so on and so forth, became independent. India became independent not too long after Israel's independence, if I remember correctly. When King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella kicked Jews out of Spain in 1492, the Ottoman Empire opened itself up to the Jews, and settled them all across the land. And the Jews prospered, so did the empire. The Sultan himself, in his declaration, his official invite to the Jewish population. If you can find an English translation, I would suggest go read it, because you can sense, you can almost hear a prophetic voice behind it. And he says and I love how he puts the king of Spain down, but he calls him the governor of Spain has pretty much robbed himself and enriched my kingdom, greatly enriched my kingdom. And you see that actually play out, because from 1492 to early 17th century, so for 2 centuries, late 15th century, early 17th century, the Ottoman Empire was flourishing. It was getting stronger and stronger, expanding its territory, expanding its economy, expanding its reach, and then things happen, right? And look at Turkey today, which is the successor to the Ottoman Empire. It has turned its back on Israel since the mid-50s, and things have gone downhill ever since. And it's only going to get worse now that the dictator there is doubling and tripling down on his animosity towards the Jewish state. Why am I saying this? Like I said, God made a promise. He said nations will bless themselves by your descendants, and they do. If they bless Israel, if they bless the Jewish people, they are in turn blessed. So by their own actions, they become blessed in relation to Israel. But when they turn their backs on Israel, they turn their backs on God's promises. And when they turn their backs on God's promises, they then by their own actions curse themselves. So that's why it's very important for America, Britain, France, especially Canada, Australia, to reconsider the path that we're taking with regards to Israel. Like, with France, Canada, and Britain recognizing a state that doesn't even exist, the so-called Palestinian state. A country that doesn't exist, you recognize it. Let's see what happens, what benefit you derive from that, or you're a curse. Australia and Canada are following suit. If history and God's track record is any indication, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And we see the same anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish sentiment growing in America also. And time and again, we have caught protesters that are here on student visas, that are activists for the so-called Palestinian cause, that are criminals. And we're elevating these criminals, and we're blessing the criminal while cursing the victims of one of the most horrendous attacks in history, in modern history, I should say. Doesn't sound like we're going down a good path.